Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Owls are a little seen beneficial animal in the garden. Today we're going to learn all about them. Also, boxwoods are one of the most popular shrubs in the landscape. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Ms. Mary Smith. Ms. Mary is a backyard wildlife curator at the Lichterman Nature Center. And Joellen Diamond is here with us. Ms. Joellen is a TSU Extension Agent in Tipton County. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good to be here.
This is going to be a good show. We're going to talk about owls.
Yes.
All right. What kind of owls will we see here in Shelby County?
Well, in Shelby County, it sort of depends on the time of year, but usually 5 or 6 different varieties. The most common one is a barred owl, B-A-R-R-E-D.
Okay.
And we can see that or hear that in our neighborhoods. We have great horned owls like the one I brought here today. Then we also have a little one called a screech owl, and then we can get a few during migration or in different parts of the state. But most of the time we don't see the owls, but we actually hear them or we can see evidence that they've been around. And one of the coolest things we can find from an owl is an owl pellet. Okay. And I brought one for you to take a look at.
You know I like to explore.
And owl pellets are, an owl cannot digest the hair and bones from what it eats, which is usually rodents, small mammals. There's a few that eat insects as well. But in this pellet, you can actually start to dissect it, and this is something we do at Lichterman too, and find the bones of different animals and then use a chart to figure out what animals that owl has been eating. So it can also be a good indication of the quality of your habitat, things like that.
Yeah, and I have a couple of bones here.
Yeah, and so that's one of the benefits of having owls around too, is that they help with control our rodent, and also small mammals like voles and shrews are a main part of the diet of a lot of owls that are native to the Mid-South. Well, it's a fun experiment to do. Yeah, you're finding a lot of good bones, and then what we could do is take a chart and lay the bones out and then see what sort of prey items are in your habitat and what the owls are eating as well.
What do you think that looks like, Joel?
I think it's an upper leg of something.
It kind of does look like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think maybe a mouse or something
Upper
like
leg
that.
of something here.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is cool. All right. So it's pretty beneficial to have owls out and about, right?
Absolutely, and our screech owl, which is the smallest owl that we have around here, will also eat insects, which could be pests to your garden as well, and large insects too.
Large insects.
Yes.
Yeah. We heard you mention what, the voles? Yeah, voles. I know a lot of people that want to get rid of voles in their yards.
Yes, voles are a big prey item for a barn owl, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later.
Okay. All right. So what about the feathers of an owl?
Well, owls are really unique. They have some special adaptations for hunting at night. And so one of the really neat things about an owl is along their edge of their feathers, their flight feathers, they're kind of jagged or serrated like a steak knife versus something like a goose. And the benefit of that is when a goose flies, you hear it taking off. You hear its wings disrupting the air. But when an owl flies, they're silent flyers because that air goes through those little jagged edges instead of being disrupted by it. So that's one of the adaptations that owls have. Another adaptation they have is they have really good eyesight. They have really big eyes, and so they can see things with just a small amount of light. And then they also belong to a group called raptors, which are hawks, eagles, owls, and falcons. Yeah, so this is from a red-tailed hawk, and these are their talons. And it's actually the owl and all raptors' most powerful weapon are their feet or their talons. That's what they use to catch and kill their prey.
Wow, how about that? So that's how they grab those voles and snakes?
That's right. Yep, there are owls that focus on eating snakes and small mammals, and some will even take birds on occasion.
Oh, okay. Tell us a little bit about the owl that you brought for us today?
Sure, I brought a really special owl in today. This is a barn owl, B-A-R-N, and it tells you a little bit about the bird. They do sometimes like to live in old barns.
Okay.
But barn owls are a really unique owl. Barn owls are there's about 10,000 different types of birds.
Wow.
There's about 5 or 6 that are found all over the world, and the barn owl is one of them. And so you can find it on every continent except for Antarctica. So that's really unique. But also this owl is unique for some other reasons too. It is not a hooting owl like we think about. It actually makes a screech or a screaming sound, which leads to some of its common names. We talked about earlier that owls are quiet when they fly, and this one could occasionally nest in a barn. So farmers would see this white thing being really quiet, maybe making its screeching sound, flying out of barns, so it was called a ghost owl. The shape of its face is kind of like a heart. It's actually for hearing, for funneling sounds into their ears, but it's also called a sweetheart or a monkey-faced owl. So those are some of its other nicknames. She looks a little interesting today. She's got a little bit of a mohawk. She is molting her feathers right now. So this bird will do it about once a year, and feathers just get worn, and so they need to be replaced throughout the year.
Sure.
She has some of those same adaptations we talked about. She's got the really powerful talons.
My goodness.
She has a sharp curved bill right here, and then she has really good eyesight. Well, barn owls have really good eyesight. I should say this animal lives at Lichterman for a very special reason. It is against the law to keep these animals as pets or in captivity without a special permit. This bird was unfortunately hit by a car and is blind.
It's blind.
It is. So it lives at Lichterman. It's one of our animal ambassadors. So we talk to people about barn owls.
Man.
And it actually, a lot of these larger birds of prey get hit by cars because of the way they see. So this bird can't move its eyeballs like we can. So they move their heads. And a lot of people know about owls turning their heads quite a bit.
Right.
They can't do a full circle. They can do about 270 degrees. But because they also don't have peripheral vision, if they're watching something cross the road or something on the side of the road, they'll be focused on that and not see the car coming this way until it's too late. So this is our resident barn owl, and we use her in a lot of programs, and they're really unique owls. They're not really common in Memphis, but we have seen them at Lichterman before.
How long has she been at Lichterman?
She's been at Lichterman for about 3 years.
About 3 years?
Okay. We don't know how old she is once these
That's
birds.
Gonna be my next question.
Yeah, once these birds turn a year old, we can't really age them after that. So we know she's at least 4 years old. She's probably a couple years older than that. They maybe can live 8 to 10 years. The oldest record, I think, is around 15 years.
Really? Okay. What does she eat? I mean, what do you feed her?
Okay, so at Lichterman, she gets a diet mainly of mice. She might get a few other things mixed in there just for some enrichment. But in the wild, they eat a lot of voles, like we were talking about, and shrews. And a pair of them have been documented catching like 30 mice in one night when they have young back at the nest. So definitely a friend to the garden.
Yeah, definitely a friend. How many young do they have at one time?
Typically, they'll have 1 to 2 young.
Okay, just 1 to 2.
Yeah. That's a lot to feed those babies, lots of mice.
Oh, sure is. I thought about that. And I guess she does good with the kids?
She does now. It did take her some time. We work with her on a regular basis, training her to be used to different sounds, especially around kids. And also it's to train her to sit on the glove like she is right now. So that took almost a year to get her really comfortable.
Wow. Well, she looks comfortable now. How about that? You're doing good. You're doing good. All right, man, we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
A real live owl on the show. How about that, folks? There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Joellen, let's talk about boxwoods, right? Popular shrub. It seems like everybody has a boxwood shrub at home, doesn't it?
Yes, everybody's got boxwood.
It seems like it.
This scientific name for the genus is Buxus.
Uh-huh.
Of course, you know, the one thing that's great about boxwood is that they're evergreen. So they stay green all year long.
Right. That's good.
And of course, they have small leaves, so they're considered a medium to fine textured plant in the landscape.
Okay.
and they've been a staple for many years. Flowering, they do flower. Now, you don't really see the flowers, but sometimes some of the varieties are fragrant, so you can smell them when they bloom. And it's usually March to April that you smell that.
Okay.
Planting it. How do you plant boxwood? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, tell us how now.
They like well-drained soil.
Well-drained. Not wet feet.
No wet feet.
Well-drained.
They prefer even soil moisture, but after they have been established, they will take some drying out, which when you think about it, think of old homes that have huge boxwoods in front of them, you know, around the United States. They don't really have irrigation systems on those, but yet they are still there, and some of them are as old as the house.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, they do well in the landscape.
Okay.
But we're going to keep that in mind when we talk in another minute.
Okay.
They like, when I say they like well-drained soil, now that means that they can get some diseases when they get too wet.
Sure.
So some diseases that are associated with them are root rot,
Sure.
foliar diseases, spots, cankers, blight, and the new one that's out there called boxwood blight.
Yeah.
Now, there's a way to get around boxwood blight. They're doing a lot of quarantine now, so hopefully everything that you find at a nursery has got a certificate with it saying it's boxwood blight free.
I hope so.
So that's the hope that is.
Because it has been found here in Shelby County.
It has been found, yes, but it's been brought in from other areas.
Right.
But if you already have boxwood, that's when I would be concerned about bringing new boxwood in, and I might want to quarantine them for a little while just to make sure. But if they have the certificate on hand, that's going to be the best way.
Okay.
They also have insect problems.
Well, it sounds like they have a lot of problems there.
They have mealybugs, they have scales, they have
Yes.
boxwood mite
Uh-huh.
and boxwood leaf miner. But those are very easily controlled if
They
you
are.
get them. And the most places that I have found the insect problems on them are places that are irrigated, just like you have the disease problems. So I have mine, but mine are not irrigated, and I don't
Neither
seem to
am I.
have any problem with mine.
don't have any problems.
So I just, prefer that. But one thing you've got to remember is boxwood are shallow rooted. They are surface rooters. And so you really are not supposed to disturb them. So if you plant a boxwood, don't put it next to an annual bed that you're going to continually dig in.
Right, makes
because
sense.
then that's going to keep disturbing the root system. They don't like the root systems disturbed. So that goes back to what I was talking about before. The estates, they have the boxwoods out front. There's nothing else around them. They're not having their roots disturbed.
That makes sense.
So that's the one thing to remember about boxwood.
Okay. Shallow
Now,
rooted.
there's a couple of different types of boxwoods. There's one called microphylla, and that's usually considered all of the Korean boxwoods, the little leaf boxwoods, and the Japanese boxwoods seem to come from that family
Okay.
and that genus and species. They also are more cold hardy than some of the others. They can go down to zone 4. And 6 and 7 is where it likes to live, but it'll even go to zone 9. So, I mean, it's got the widest range for boxwood for it to live in. And they are, of course, you're supposed to get 3 to 4 feet round, but, they'll get bigger than that.
Yeah.
But now the boxwood, the sempervirens, this is the common boxwood. It is the one we most think of when we think of boxwood, and it can get 15 to 20 feet.
My goodness.
In fact,
big.
I remember being at Mount Vernon and Washington's home and seeing these large, huge evergreen shrubs. I thought they were gorgeous. And when I went up to them, I'm like, these are boxwood. Oh my gosh, I have never seen one that tall.
Wow.
So yes, they do get that tall, and they are gorgeous, and they live very well. But then there's a lot of the dwarf boxwoods. They call English boxwoods, and they come from the sempervirens line.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're all related. And that's the ones I have here. These are mine. They've been in the ground for 18 years.
Wow.
And they are still under 18 inches tall.
Okay.
So they're slow growing. The Sempervirens is a slow growing boxwood. And now this particular one here is a upright form. It grows in a slender column, which I've put in a container. So it does really well. You see how nice and green these are. And they don't have any disease or bug problems because I don't have irrigation, and I do water them during drought, but I don't, water them continually. So they don't have.
Look at Joellen. Look at that. These look nice.
Yeah, and see, this one's really
You're taking good care of your boxwood.
Tiny leafed boxwood
it really
here.
Is.
They do very well, and I've been very pleased with them. So I've never had a lot of problem with boxwood.
Yeah, these look good.
So I like the boxwood.
Now let me ask you about pruning, because of course we know the practice. Most people like to shear them into meatballs and things like that. So what do you think about that?
Well, like I did with these. You see, I cut this at where another one of these branches. See, I would cut this again right here.
Which is the correct way to do that.
And I trim mine a lot around the holidays because I use them for decorations, or if I need a flower arrangement, and I'll cut some of these for the greenery in there.
Right.
That's the only time I usually prune them. Now, because of the boxwood blight, I was looking at my boxwood and I decided to trim them a little bit. And I said, all these nice, and I'm thinking this too, these are nice cuttings. What I would like to do is strip these, put some rooting powder on this, and stick it in some moist soil and leave it for a while, and it will root. So I have done that too. And if you have boxwood and you want to propagate them, that would be a way to do that. Boxwood, they have been around for centuries. And of course, when they've been around for centuries, then that means that humans have interacted with them.
Right.
So there is lots of folklore and superstitions associated with boxwood.
Oh, sure.
But it's not native to the United States.
Okay.
It's native to Europe, to Asia, and to northwestern Africa.
How about that? Okay.
So, interesting, yeah.
That is interesting.
But of course, since it's been around for so long, especially in Europe, there's a lot of folklores and things like that with the boxwood. One of them being now, there's a lot of countries in Europe that have a history of making spoons out of the boxwood wood.
How about that?
Which I thought was interesting. Spoons. Okay. Yes, of all things, spoons. And there is a tradition for Irish a long time ago used to plant boxwood at their doors, because that would keep the witches from entering their building, their house.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It is.
And of course, boxwood has also been associated with eternal life. So from eternal life to keeping witches out, it's just,
I can get with the eternal life. The witches?
Well, it's very interesting.
How about that? It's good stuff, Jill. We appreciate that. We need to come out to your place and see these.
It's beautiful.
These look beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
It is that time of year, y'all, to be thinking about bringing in your house plants that have been outside all summer enjoying the nice warm weather. Well, now it's getting colder, and tender plants like this Dieffenbachia have to be carried indoors if we want them to live through the winter. And what do you do before you do that? Well, you need to inspect them really well to get off any little trespassing insects or even frogs. I've carried in tree frogs before, which are kind of nice, but then again, they're kind of bizarro in the house. And you also need to probably clean your pot, get all the algae off, and you need to tip it over. And a lot of times you'll have slugs and pill bugs and other little undesirable critters that will be coming in with the pot. So I'd clean my pot up real good, inspect it to make sure there's no insects or anything like that, and make sure you don't have fire ants, because I have actually brought in fire ants and just didn't know it. So you need to make sure that you inspect the pot for that and take measures to prevent bringing those in.
All right, here's our Q&A session. Y'all ready for these? These are some real good questions. Mary, you jump in there and help us out, all right?
All right.
All right, here's our first viewer email. I have a vegetable garden and I have a lot of Johnson grass taking over my garden area. I've attempted to plow during the coldest winter weather, temperatures in the teens, in an attempt to freeze the root structure and have made no progress. What will get rid of Johnson grass in my large vegetable garden? And this is from Mike from Athens, Tennessee. So he wants to get rid of the Johnson grass in his large vegetable garden. Look at the attempt. The coldest winter weather.
Yeah, but you know, they have Johnson grass up north too, so.
Johnson grass is tough.
It's very, very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
One plant can produce over 80,000 seeds. Wow. And of course, it reproduces by seeds and rhizomes.
Yeah, and they're having trouble with the rhizomes, I'm sure.
The rhizomes.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a little experience with this, right?
Yes, I had the same problem.
Okay.
I had I continually tilled my garden trying to get the Johnson grass to go away, and it kept coming up. But you know, as it came up, I pulled it up, or I dug down and found where the root was, and kept doing that. And it took several years, but I finally did get rid of it in my garden.
Okay. So good moist conditions maybe will help out, because you got to get all of that rhizome out of there for sure.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Mary?
Yeah, I guess the one nice thing about Johnson grass is that it is kind of easy to pull. It's not one of those really tough ones to pull, but just, you know, sticking with it and pulling it up every time you see it.
Yeah, tilling is going to have to be a part of that, cultural practice. I know somebody's going to ask, so what about using herbicides?
Well, yeah.
They work, not as well. It's going to be multiple applications. Glyphosate is one, fluazaflop is another one, which is a grass killer. But you're going to have to do that in combination with tilling.
Yeah.
Right, because again, if you break any of that rhizome and leave it in the ground, it comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I've often thought, I wonder if I'm tilling it, if I'm cutting up the rhizomes and making more problems for myself. But I continue to do both.
Yeah, and you better get rid of that seed head too, because if you let it go to seed, I mean, it's definitely going to come back the next season. So there you have it, Mr. Mike. Got a lot of work ahead of you, but just keep at it, do a little tilling. If you use herbicides, a little glyphosate, a little fluazaflop may help, but all of that needs to be done together. Okay, and don't let it go to seed, and don't break that rhizome out in the ground either. All right, so here's our next viewer email. There is a blackish film on my crepe myrtle plants. What is it, and what can I do to prevent it? And this is from Adam from Blythe Wood. What do we think?
I think it could be crepe myrtle bark scale, or it could be aphids.
Or it could be aphids, right. Could be
whatever aphids. It is, it's a bug of some type that is causing the sooty mold to be forming on the plant. That's what the black that you see.
Right, it's black sooty mold, is what it's called. It's a fungus. Right.
And now if she sprayed a fungicide, she could get rid of the fungus, but that's going to come back. If you got to address the problem is the insect.
Right.
So it's either going to be crepe myrtle bark scale or it's going to be aphids.
Right. Because both of those secrete honeydew.
Yes.
Honeydew is a sugary, sticky substance, and of course, it provides nutrients for the fungus, black sooty mold, to grow on. All right?
Yes.
So that means, you have to go to the problem, which is going to be either the aphids or the scales.
Yes.
All right, Adam? So, you have to address those problems.
Figure out which one you've got. If you see white on the branches and stuff, it's most likely going to be crepe myrtle bark scale. And if you actually see the aphids on the tips of the scale, then you know you have aphids.
Yeah, you have aphids. And I would, at this point in time of the year, I'd just get out my hose.
Yeah.
Just knock them off. Just spray them, 15% fan spray. Yeah, knock them off. Yeah, because you don't want to damage your crepe myrtle, for sure. But yeah, just knock those off and that'll be fine. All right? So there you have it. It's black sooty mold, which is a fungus, okay? And just wash that off. Mother Nature will help you with that as well.
Will.
All right, so thank you for that question, Adam. Here's our next viewer email. When and how do I go about pruning my lower petalum? And this is from Kim right here in Memphis. You have one of these at home, don't you?
Oh, I have several.
I have one at home.
I've got green forms, I've got purple leafed forms.
Yeah,
I like them all for different reasons. They bloom usually in late winter and early spring, and so it comes under the category of a shrub that is blooming. And the rule of thumb is always to prune a blooming shrub right after it finishes blooming. So
right.
that's when I would wait to prune it, is after it finishes blooming. I know they say they're small, but some of them get very tall. So I know people want to prune them. And you can prune them any time of year you want to, but you're going to lose blooms. But if you prune them right after they finish blooming, you'll have a better chance of getting a pretty blooming plant the next year.
Yeah, if you prune them now, it's usually because something's dead, something's dying, or it's rubbing, crossing or something like that. That's the only time I really prune back, things like this. But yeah, late winter, early spring, it's a good time to do that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful plant.
I like them.
Yeah, I really do. And yeah, most people are trying to control the growth, of course, usually. And what happens is, what do? They go right over the top.
Yeah. Well,
instead of, I always reach down.
Reach
down next, branch. It's the best way to go about pruning those. So there you have it, Ms. Kim. We appreciate the question. So Mary, Joe, we're out of time. It's been fun.
It's been great.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. If you want to learn more about owls or boxwoods, go to familyplotgarden.com. While you're there, drop us a line and ask us your gardening question. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.